On this channel, we often talk about optimizing Microsoft costs. And Dynamics 365 is a Microsoft platform to take care of your marketing, clients, and other business activities. And Dynamics 365 prominence is increasing in 2025, and it'll probably continue to grow. It is a flagship product for Microsoft in a sense. And optimizing Dynamics 365 costs is not as easy as with other licenses. It's never an easy process, but with Dynamics 365, it's a bit more complicated due to its complicated licensing program. But normally you would think, let's assess what our users use. Do they need these licenses? Maybe they need some licenses that are cheaper. Maybe some of them don't need licenses at all. So that is our way of thinking about optimizing Dynamics 365 costs. And on that note, I had a conversation with my friend Vlad, who's here with us in this studio. He's a Microsoft MVP, by the way. And Vlad told me there's a little secret that very few people know, which can drastically reduce how much you spend on Dynamics without losing functionality. And welcome to SAMexpert TV channel, where, as I said, we talk about managing Microsoft licenses and cloud costs. And Vlad, I'm passing the mic to you. Please introduce yourself and tell us what is that unknown shadow twin of Dynamics 365 and why doesn't anybody know about it?
Yeah. Thank you, Alexander, Sasha, for having me on this podcast. It's always good to follow, and I think you have great audience. And thank you everyone who's joined us to listen to the story. So this is just telling about myself. I work with Dynamics for 20 years, 20 plus. It's actually I was working in the days when it was not called Dynamics. So I have a team of people. Obviously, we have close to 40 people now who is just delivering the customization extensions. And one of the key conversations is always license management. So in 2019, I think I did that session 4 or 5 times at different events, different conferences, explaining that there is like a way where you can have all the power of Dynamics for a fraction of Dynamics cost. And that's actually kind of open secret. Everyone in our space, in technology community, among MVPs, obviously know that there is a Power Platform, there is a Dynamics, and they pretty much, it's the same beast, but with slightly different flavor. But I always, when I talk to customers or I talk to some people who are just working on Dynamics, for them it's eye-opening discovery. Oh, you know what? Yeah, can we do some kind of cost optimization at the same time, not losing any functionality? And that's definitely doable. There are a lot of caveats, and what we need to mention maybe from get-go, is it something which Microsoft doesn't like us to know about? No. Microsoft is actually thinks that if there is a better fit using Microsoft technology stack at a smaller price point, they're all about it. There are so many now vendors who use this leverage this opportunity to create their own IP at smaller cost, using Power Platform instead of Microsoft. And Sasha, we probably need to mention what's the cost difference. So when I did my session 2019, the retail price for Dynamics CE custom engagement was $95. I think now it's at least $105. They introduced some new plans. And the thing about that alternative, which is Power Platform license, they called Power App, Premium Power App, per app license, I think. I'll give exact names in a second. So that thing costed $5 and $20 in 2019, and today the price is the same.
Is it per user?
So $20. Yeah, so per user license is $20 per user per month, and there is a called license called per app, which is $5 per user. Actually, per app, it's more to be agreed. We don't want to go into details too much, but probably we need, because it's I know, Sasha, you kind of prominent on licensing. So yeah, it's per app. So per app license gives you ability to use one app, so-called Power App, and one Power Page. Access to one Power Page.
I actually think we need to simplify this.
Yes.
As much as I like talking about licensing in depth, we don't want to make this session.
And I'm putting a slide maybe for us just to show.
Somebody starts asking questions in the chat.
Yeah.
So I want to start with you already mentioned that Microsoft is not against it.
Yeah.
And the question I'm asking myself, Microsoft actually created this situation for themselves because Dynamics applications, they were separate applications. Navision Accept, who remembers those?
Mhm.
I don't even actually know. What is GP? Is it one of those as well?
Yeah,
So,
yeah.
and
Yeah.
then it all kind of transitioned into the online service Dynamics 365. I'm not talking about on-premise.
Yeah.
And at some point, and please correct me if I'm wrong, it was all migrated onto this Microsoft, what they now call Microsoft Fabric or Microsoft Data, what is it?
Dataverse. You're talking about Dataverse, I guess.
Dataverse, not
Yeah.
Fabric, Dataverse.
Yeah. Yeah. Mhm.
And thus the data that Dynamics uses sits in Dataverse,
Yeah.
in which Power Apps and other Power Platform things, again, please correct me where I'm wrong,
Yeah.
also reside. Actually, what they actually in the Dataverse before Dynamics,
Yeah.
and then Dynamics was brought in there. So now the data is there, and it's obvious that when you have access to the data, as long as you have access to the data,
Yeah.
you probably can implement some functionality outside of Dynamics. So Microsoft, didn't they stab themselves in the back with that?
So I think the question will be: is Microsoft going to cannibalize its own Dynamics because they introduced Power Platform? But before we'll answer this question, let's give, just to make it super simple for our audience to understand the story. Let me give the full story. So 2001, 2004, Microsoft had the product called CRM 1.0. And this is actually the name many people still like. They like to call things CRM. But we obviously cannot use CRM today because there is a company which is slightly more prominent using this name, which is Salesforce. And I think Microsoft at some point realized we need to have it. It was called CRM for a long time. And then at some point they decided to rebrand and it started being called Dynamics. And some other products which used to be ERP like Axapta, like Navision, were also rebranded now into all Dynamics. So all of these products, which are both ERP, CRM, and e-commerce, now sit on the big umbrella brand called Dynamics, and all they add to the end the CE, customer engagement, which is CRM, or FNO, used to be Axapta, finance and operations. So Dynamics is actually, it's a marketing brand. It's not a technology, and you have all this kind of technology underneath. And then at some point, when do you remember, I think it was 2015, 2016, I could be wrong, when there was that revolution of low code, no code coming about. And I think Microsoft was scratching their head, okay, do we need to build something from the scratch? And they were acquiring some other third-party tools, or shall we use something which exists in the house? So what they did, they actually decided to use Dynamics technology, which underpins Dynamics CE, by the way, not FNO, Dynamics CE, Dynamics CRM, pretty much, to use this technology and try to make it low-code, no-code solution. So to make it, and low-code, no-code need to be cheap. I mean, the cost of license. So they stripped out all the first-party apps elements like, for example, invoice, quotes, opportunity management. So you take away all these UI, user experience elements, but you keep the beast underneath. You keep the database, you keep the business logic, you keep all this power of configuration, letting people who will try to do low code, no code use it without the complexity of CRM bits. And then at that moment, it was called Dataverse. I think it's quite my how I recall it's quite. I hope it's quite accurate. And then the Dataverse was effectively the technology, the SQL, Azure SQL, business logic stuff, which was underpinning CRM bit for a long time. So what had happened from 2001 to 2025, we have technology was underpinning CRM, became the Power Platform, and made it and the cost made it possible so you can build your own app using this kind of stack, which is why there is a confusion, because if you came to the world, you had first Power Platform and you had Dynamics. For you might see a confusion, but for us it was always the same tech. Just imagine, think of this. They joke that Dynamics is actually a Power Platform app, a very sophisticated Power Platform app which is built by Microsoft. So you don't need to use Microsoft flavor of Power App. You can build your own Power App, paying a little bit, paying obviously a different price point. There are some caveats. We need to say what's the difference, how Microsoft, what's the risk for Microsoft, just to your question, if there is a risk of Microsoft cannibalizing. And the answer, so initially everyone was kind of puzzled and everyone was concerned. I think even Microsoft Dynamics team was a little bit concerned. But what time showed, now it's opened the doors for everybody else. So before, if you were like, let's say you've been a Salesforce shop, and you didn't need to use dynamic CRM, but you still wanted to build, I don't know, a check-in checkout app for events, or you wanted to have some basic timesheet app on your phone, you were going to Power Platform, build that tool on Power Platform, which is technically Dataverse still Dynamics technology. And that was a foot in the door for Microsoft to start upscaling and setting up with Power Platform. And if you look back, actually what happened, technologists now, every single Dynamics person can claim themselves as a Power Platform. But nowadays, you'll see more people call themselves a Power Platform specialist rather than Dynamics specialist, because it opened more doors. And I think for Microsoft, it actually was net positive. So they're now selling both Dynamics and Power Platform. Customers who were buying CRM, ERP, they're still buying CRM, ERP, but new customers who wanted to build something else and didn't want to do some dependencies, low-level development, they bought Power Platform. Is it kind of a good explanation? Do you think we confused our audience? How do you feel?
No, I don't know. We can ask our audience. We have a question from the audience, by the way, that came in my DMs. There's a
Okay.
reason why this person didn't want to ask in public chat. But the question is very simple. What about restricted tables? It's very specific.
Yeah, it's very specific. So that's the thing. We need to put some caveats. So you cannot like be there sitting, and I have a session. I'll just because we have just 1 hour, I'll definitely recommend to go and check my YouTube on YouTube. Google for Vlad Sarov, migrating from Dynamics 365 to Power Platform. I was doing a user group in Washington, DC event, and you can find it online, entire session. It goes actually in details how you can transition, what's the caveat. But just to give you the key message, you cannot take, so for example, if you want to use a full-blown CRM, you want to have LinkedIn, you have all the power of CRM, you literally use it, there is no way you can move just a Power Platform, completely abandon. You can add your Power Platform, build new apps, but I would not recommend to abandon it completely. But if all you use opportunity, you use contacts accounts, those are not restricted entities. And just to explain for audience, because the person who's asking, he obviously understands what restricted entities are. So under Microsoft licensing agreement, if you're using Dataverse and using some element from Dynamics, data sitting in Dynamics, and you want to add now a Power Platform user, the restriction on this, you cannot use a specific list of entities. There are 42. I see it before my eyes. In 2019, it was 42. I think they added 3 or 4 more entities called restricted, so you can't consume data from them. And another thing, you cannot use first-party apps. For example, you can convert lead into opportunity clicking a button. And that feature you cannot use being a Power Platform user. You can see those elements of interface, but under license agreement, you cannot do that. So somebody will say, oh, you know what, 42 entities, restricted entities, oh, it's a showstopper. We're not going to spend any time digesting and seeing. So I intentionally, again, if you go to that session, I have Sasha, I have actually a slide. If you want, I can share that slide. I have it before.
Yes, by all means. If you share it, I'll put it on screen.
Yeah, so I didn't, so let me do my
There is a share button in the interface.
Yeah. Again, just to save people some time. Look, if it works, because we're live and live has its own quirks. But I want to say, in my session, I run this kind of, I ask people in the audience, what entities or what tables, entities are tables, what tables do you think Microsoft restrict if you use Power Platform? And the answer was and they were giving all wrong answers. So people assume you cannot use contacts, most popular table. You cannot use accounts. No, the only table which I think important, and I have the whole list, again, we can make a reference, people to go and check. Licensing guide, it has a list of restricted entities. So just Google for restricted entities. Ask ChatGPT for restricted entities, will give you the list. So the only entity you probably care and you're more likely to use is an incident. It's case entity. So if you're a user of service module of Dynamics, you may not be able to use Power Platform for the same sake. But for contacts, accounts, opportunities, leads, all of that is fair play. You can use in your system. And I remember Microsoft was talking for a long time that schema, you cannot make really schema proprietary. What is proprietary is IP, features, buttons in the interface. And in terms of consuming data, as long as you license, if you have a proper per app license or per user plan, and you're not touching so-called restricted entities, you're good to go. And to that person, to respond to that person, I'll give an example of my friend. There is a product called Rapid Start. So that's actually a CRM, which is competing to Dynamics. And what all it does, it simplified the complexity which Dynamics brings in and created a CRM on top of Dataverse for the same price point, which is, like I mentioned, $5 and $20.
Wow.
And it's not just Microsoft is not just against that. Microsoft is supporting it because they think it's fair play if you can create apps. Now there are tools. Everyone probably heard about Dynamics Marketing. Now it's called Customers Journeys. So there are at least 2 vendors I know who created a product which is marketing on top of Dataverse for Power Platform. And that's a fair play. So you go and check those restricted entities. If you kind of still on the fence, go and check my my presentation. I have that list of entities there, and you'll be seeing. So I see it before my eyes. Majority out of 42, just 5 or 7, which people really use, and majority of others are technical entities. For example, booking journals, booking setup metadata, booking timestamp. So those are technical tables which Microsoft need for their first-party apps. And if you're not using first-party apps, you don't need those tables. So beyond case, again, I definitely recommend to go and check for those list of restricted entities. And if you're not touching them, you're safe.
Let's talk about cost savings.
Mm-hmm.
On average, I understand that everybody has their own case. On average, say you get an average client with an average situation. They use Dynamics 365 CRM, Dataverse. What's the percentage of users on average that could be moved away from the Dynamics 365 licensing towards per app or per user licensing? How many people are wasting money?
Okay.
On average.
That's a loaded question. I don't know what's the industry setup. So there is a short answer and long answer. So the short answer, I referenced quite a few times. I'll give you exact name of a person who said it at Microsoft because I have it here. Her name is Sumit Chauhan. She was a corporate vice president. I think she's for Office Product Group in 2019 and maybe actually 2023. And I think she might be still there now. So she said an average PowerPoint user uses 10% of functionality. And that's actually when she said it. I think she was doing Copilot demo on YouTube in 2023. So I have like references, and I think that's expectable. Majority of us is using just 10% of any application. Unless you're Photoshop expert, it's unlikely to use every single feature. We usually go for a couple of buttons. So you can probably do your assessment and see how many features you use in your Dynamics product and try to take them. And if you have a user, let's say you have a sales development representative, you have account executive who need to use all this power, maybe need to use LinkedIn in Navigator. So those folks would benefit having a full-blown Dynamics license. But let's say you have an assistant for SDR. And that person might not need a full-blown license. All they need to do is just to go and validate some contact and account information. They still need a license because Microsoft doesn't let. There is another thing which more experienced people might ask, what's multiplexing? And we can touch that thing too.
Yes.
Yeah, we cannot. So you cannot consume that data. Let's if we touch multiplexing, let me give an analogy. I like this. I like this example. So let's say you have a kid whom you give 1 cookie a day. This is your house rule for some good or bad reason. You don't let this person eat more than 1 cookie. So he takes this cookie. And then you have a younger one whom your older sends to go and take a cookie on his behalf, and he's going to consume it anyway. So you have somebody else taking data on your behalf and not paying additional license. So this is effectively called multiplexing. You cannot have, so some clever people might do this. They can have a single user, imagine buying a single user, creating a very sophisticated API on the end. So that user populates data in Dataverse, and 10 or 20 other users using some portal, some web resource just to populate and update data. So you actually have 21 people, 21 salespeople using Dynamics with but one license being paid.
You
So
can't do
Microsoft
that.
called, so Microsoft called multiplexing, and multiplexing can be having not just that clever. It could have, you can have some API which is feeding data into another table, into another source, and that source interrogates talking to your CRM data. So you need to be careful. You need to just go, because it's a very simple explanation. And to be honest, I don't think there is a final definition of what multiplexing is.
I can
So-
explain. No, wait. Wait a second. Let me try.
Mhm.
The way I explain
Maybe
it
have a better.
to my clients and get very unhappy faces as a response. It doesn't matter what's in between the server and the final consumer, who's a person in this case, because we're talking about user licenses. All that matters is how many users either consume or supply the data.
Yeah.
Again, doesn't matter what you have in between. You license the end consumers or the end supply. You can call them endpoints.
Yeah,
That's it.
exactly it. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, and in this case, what you can have, so imagine, okay, so now you understand, I might be in the risk of multiplex. I need still to buy some license from Microsoft. So Power Platform, in my example, where you have assistant to sales, assistant to account executive, so that person can be dropped to a Power Platform license, Power App license, and they might be using just that limited set of functionality, just dealing with data and not using full power of LinkedIn, full power of analytics, which Dynamics provides. So there is a case for your light users who can use it. We can talk about Teams license. There is a professional license within Dynamics space. Those have some limits and caveats. But what I'm thinking about a scenario where you want to have, so when you want some, for example, you have a person who sits at the events and all he does is just scanning pictures and going through a list of attendees and just populating data in CRM. You might want to create them so-called Canvas app, a mobile app, and those people, and you don't need to have a sophisticated team license for that sake. All you need is just a single experience, single screen with first name, last name, email, and you go do it on their iPad. So in this case, Power Platform license could be a better fit. And to your question, how many of this is pretty much, you can ask how many assistants, how many light users you have in the system, and every single light user can be assessed for Power Platform. There is a way how you can assess. Again, I don't want to make this session as promotion of my old 2019 workshop webinar I did. Not webinar, actually, a session I did 2019.
Is it, by the way, is it online? Is it
completely online? Yeah, go on YouTube, check for my name, and check transitioning from Dynamics to Power Platform.
Why not? So what I'm asking, I'm sorry, I'm going to ask this question. I know exactly, because sometimes clients come to us and say, guys, how much do you, gentlemen, ladies and gentlemen, how much money do you save on average to a Microsoft client? And yes, I'm tempted to say, some clients only save 5%, some say 40%. But I can tell that, on average, your case always depends. It's 25, 30%.
Yeah.
So my question to you is, if you are involved in cases when your clients ask you to either optimize or maybe not optimize an existing solution but build a new one, what is the percentage of power users? Let's call them power users who absolutely require Dynamics and there's no way around it, as opposed to the entire organization? Is it 20%? Is it 10%? Is it 15%? On average, there could be an organization where everybody needs a power license.
Yeah.
Again, on average, what is the percentage of Dynamics users in the whole organization that needs to consume data from the Dataverse? See what I'm going to? Just the actual question I'm asking is, how much money are we losing if we don't know and don't utilize this feature? Not going into multiplexing and legalization of use. Just purely, I want to pay for all the users. Shall I buy Dynamics, or do I only need 20% of my users to have Dynamics?
So let me put it this way. I'll give a real example. Because if you ask me what's the average for the industry, I don't know, because only Microsoft knows the response to that answer. But what we can give to our users, we can tell Dynamics is, I think today is $105. I think it's not premium license, retail price you can have, and Power Platform is 5 per user per app license, and they call now premium, which is $20. So you can do your math. I actually have it in my deck. I have in 2019 it was $95. So $95 dropping to $5. So this is difference you potentially can save on license, but it's not that simple.
Crazy.
Say it again.
This is crazy.
It's crazy, yeah. But we don't want to send a message that, oh, you know what, we found a loophole in the system. No. You need to do some kind of analysis and identify, is it a best fit? So the right word to hear, we're not saving, we're finding a better fit. So a license which fits better
I love
customer.
that.
Yeah.
It's the right way to say it. Exactly.
Yeah. And I'll tell you, but I'll give you a real example from real customers. So one customer was actually in the cycle. It was a couple of years back. It was a real cycle of renewal, and they knew. So I mentioned that. So you can use move some of your assistants or light CRM users to a different license. We can create them a light app. So what they did, they actually used this opportunity not to drop their price point. Because Microsoft, yeah, you can. Yeah, you fair game. So what they did, they actually shifted their budget to buy more LinkedIn licenses, for example, because that was their gap. LinkedIn Navigator. And the money they saved on Dynamics, people moved to Power Platform. They shifted to consume something else from Microsoft. And that was a win-win for everybody because effectively it was a deeper penetration from Microsoft perspective, more IP, more licenses within the account. And people felt that not paying. So you don't have a user who's paying $95 per user per month in those days, $105 now. And that user barely using CRM at all. He's using single entity for $100. So now they're doing it for $5 or $20 per user per month. And they're super happy and they think it was like a win-win for everybody. So Microsoft didn't lose the money. Customer is happy, and we provided probably a good advice there. So it's a better fit. It's but fundamentally you can save money too. Fundamentally you can.
It's not always about savings. Yes, obviously we say we sell savings. It's not all about savings. And you're absolutely right. Sometimes it's about reshuffling the budget in a way that delivers better value.
Yeah,
very good example. And speaking of which, I want to make that comment as well. I learned that lesson early in my software asset management career when I was enthusiastically talking to a CIO saying we're gonna cut your Microsoft cost by $2 million. He said, I don't want that. I fought for this budget. I have it. I just want to use it for something that will not be a waste. See what I mean? So absolutely, yeah. And I understand also
and waste
the secondary agenda always. It's not always about an immediate sale. It's also about long-term brand satisfaction, brand recognition, and therefore, whether you like the word or not, but better lock in.
Yeah, exactly. And look how Microsoft is always disrupting itself. So now with Copilot, everyone understands that AI and Copilot it's a big game now, but it could be even a bigger game in future. So they need to readjust their pricing, and it might cannibalize. If everyone going and asking, having conversation with a chat, why you need buttons and interfaces? It might cannibalize. But you know that as a good business, you're trying to disrupt yourself, not waiting for somebody else to disrupt you. So Power Platform was a good disruption, which I think fundamentally I didn't see the now. I don't have access to the budgeting, not budgeting, the revenue numbers we can probably guess. But all in all, I see by the volume of technologists joined Power Platform game, it definitely expanded. So having that low code, no code at a lower price introduced to more customers, made a bigger penetration for Microsoft, and I think they won at the end of the day. So cannibalizing, I think it's not the right word. It's probably disrupting and finding a better fit with our help.
I'll play this game with you. Well, let's stick to the language. I understand. So I have nothing against it, by the way. I have a comment. If you have a Power App accessing restricted tables, sorry, going back to purely technical.
Yeah, restricted, yeah.
You only need a Dynamics 365 license if it's read-write. If it's read-only, no Dynamics 365 license is required.
So the restriction so they have a team license. So team license is also Teams license called Dynamics Teams. Dynamics Teams, I think it has different flavor. I think it's called Team. I was checking the name, but it never stuck.
It's a team member, team license. I remember that.
Team member, yeah.
Very
So
the most basic one.
Yeah, so the team license, which is cheaper, I think it's way cheaper, that is about playing with number of, read-write privilege, number of custom entities. So how many custom tables can you bring to the game? Last time I've checked with Power Platform, and I can be stay corrected, and I would really appreciate for a person who mentioned last time. And I checked this preparing for this session. I went through the Power Platform guide, which is actually updated in July 2025, so it's literally very hot. That's still saying they don't think it's read-on. It's actually access to those entities. So my take, and I'm happy to be stay corrected, you cannot read or write, and I could be wrong, but I think last time I checked it was exactly that.
By the way, technical ability doesn't necessarily mean that you have a license to do it. It's
exactly
You always need to check with the licensing guidance. I'll express one sentiment that I feel about Microsoft licensing, how it's changed in 2025. It didn't change. It didn't change in a second. It didn't change like suddenly overnight. It was a slow transition that resulted in where we are right now. We used to see Microsoft licensing. Obviously, I mean, Dynamics always existed in the new realm already. But we used to see Microsoft licensing as predominantly per user, per server. The question that we used to ask is, how many Windows Server licenses do we need? How many SQL Server licenses do we need? That is usually the conversation that IT had. And obviously, yes, it all was calculated based on the project demand and whatnot. Nowadays, look at licensing. It's not only complicated on its own. You just gave an example. You had to read the guide because it's complicated. It's also the approach to licensing has changed. The right question to ask in 2025 is not how many SQL licenses I need. It's rather what combination of licenses and their quantities and potentially consumption items do I need to do A or X to solve a problem. So we went from server and user centric licensing to solution centric licensing.
Yeah.
I wonder how Microsoft played a very clever game, and I must commend them on this. As much as we may be seen as working against Microsoft because we help clients optimize budgets, and maybe some of the Microsoft executives may get upset because we tell our clients, for example, don't buy Copilot this year. Wait, you don't need it. So some people may get upset, but we're not strategically against Microsoft. Actually, it's not well known, even to the viewers of this channel, is that in the 90s, I used to promote Microsoft. In the early 2000s, I used to be a Microsoft partner. And I appreciate a lot of what Microsoft does. It's just, we're playing this commercial game of negotiations. That's it. That's what it is. It's a commercial game of negotiations.
Yeah.
And Microsoft does very clever things. And from the commercial standpoint, whether that was driven by commerce or just the reality of it, they turned everything upside down. And it creates lots of problems, but it also gives you more flexibility on the other hand. And sudden discoveries like this, it wasn't known to you for many years, of course, as you started this live. But for me, it was an absolute out-of-the-blue discovery that to solve a certain problem, you don't necessarily have to have Dynamics licenses.
Yeah.
Even Dynamics team licenses, you can actually do many non-power user things using the cheaper per app license, which is £5, $5. What is it?
For those per user, but per app. Yeah. By the way, you might not find, so it's still in the licensing guide. If you go to retail, Microsoft retail price, you'll see just that called per user, not called premium, used to call per user. So that's $20 per user per month. But I think that's they assign differently. So you need to some kind of hand holding there when you're doing this transition. So for example, probably if you're a small shop, small business, you probably can do it yourself. But if you're a slightly large organization, you need help like Alexander or my help, somebody who help you navigate the license space, and somebody, a technologist, who will explain what the impact might be. Because, for example, per app, that $5 license, it's not assigned the same way how they pay user license. You have per app, it sits as you buying as a pack. There is a name for that, not coming to me. So it sits in your environment, and then every single time you assign an app to a user, in technology terms, it means something. That license being consumed. So when you release that app, license goes back to the pool. So that's those $5 license. $20 is old school. You assign to user, and that user can have unlimited apps. So they used to call those per app license. They used to call them passes, a pass. So app has a pass assigned to a specific user. So there is some kind of small caveats, like how it's technicalities, how it's being delivered. But all in all, it's still the same $5, $20 against a slightly bigger number, which is a full-blown Dynamics. So you're right talking about solutions, and you're right how Microsoft kind of make a discovery. But look, you never know. Maybe a Copilot going to replace all other licenses. Imagine that bright future we were promised. You go, you ask a prompt, and it delivers you everything you expect. It creates interfaces for you. Let's say it's 2030. Let's say, what if it's going to happen? So in this case, all your pay user license, all those apps might not make as much sense as they make sense today. So Microsoft is right, trying to disrupt and trying to define a new angle, or follow the lead. Power Platform was born when low-code, no-code idea was in the air, and Microsoft just decided to use Dataverse for that sake.
And now you can no-code using vibe coding as well.
Yeah.
Telling AI, I need an app for this, and please create it. Probably not modern AI, but I do believe that this is where it's all been going since 90s, actually. What we're seeing right now, the development of AI, it's a bit of smoke and mirrors, because LLMs are not really AI. They're more like approximation models. Anyway, I don't want to go that deep. There are people that will be very upset with what I'm saying right now, although I'm right. But whether that will replace everything, eventually, maybe. Maybe there'll be different AI licensing. You'll be paying for Copilot interactions with Dataverse, for example, or Copilot interactions with SharePoint data, or something like that. It'll all become consumption-based, I'm pretty sure, and maybe there'll be plans with unlimited usage. Think about future licensing as probably what we have in internet tariffs, mobile tariffs.
Yeah,
that's
look
where it's going, I believe.
And look at OpenAI, or look at Perplexity. Prices are going through the roof. So all their premium flavors are not going like 20 to 40. No, $20 to $200.
Yes.
And the most sophisticated $200 is $20,000. Do you remember they introduced now PhD level, some kind of enterprise? OpenAI was mentioned. It's $20,000. So it doesn't mean that in new licenses, new type breed of license will be cheap. I think if anything, it will Microsoft or big vendors, they will have to compensate whatever they're going to lose today. So the price point could be through the roof. You know what's worth saying about Copilot? And it's again a reason why Power Platform Bet was so right for Microsoft. Copilot used to be PVA, Power Virtual Agent. It's actually initially when the Copilot just came about, it was a virtual agent sitting on top of Power Platform. So the same Dataverse engine. Now Copilot, so well, it's actually moving far away. So PVA had my opinion about PVA. Someone liked, some other people didn't like it. But the fact that they had something which could be easily translated, even initially just rebranded into self-sustainable Copilot, and now Microsoft building on top of it, gives you a clue that Power Platform Bet was the right one for Microsoft, because when the time came, they had a technology they could take from their kind of back burner and put on front burner. They didn't have to build it from scratch because it will take way longer. So just another reason why you definitely need to be aware of Power Platform, existence of Power Platform, because it looks like everything else now wrapping out around Power Platform.
I actually think that for Copilots, and I want to make another comment on that, Dataverse and Power Platform is natural habitat, not Office. I know Microsoft is trying to increase adoption of Copilot through real adoption and in many cases pretend adoption. I mean, come on. We have 20% daily users of Copilot in Microsoft Word by using the feature they didn't ask for, the summaries. So the summaries go on automatically. They are tracked by Viva Insights as usage of Copilot. I didn't ask for. I'm not using Copilot, although I see summaries. No. And there's another joke I saw yesterday. Really loved it. It's a meme. And there's a family at the dinner table, and the kids are asking, "Mommy, how did our father become a multimillionaire?" And the mother responds, "Oh, he just renamed workflows into agents." But Copilots or not, marketing or not, renaming, rebranding, Dataverse, from what I'm hearing and from what I knew before this, is probably the natural habitat for copilots and AI. This is where it will be, and I agree with you on that note that maybe we're talking about power ups and low code, no code, vibe coding, which will eventually become just you'll be just talking to a human-like assistant. Can you please give me a list of all the clients that we have interacted in the last 3 months, which have also visited our website, and if you and even further, and see whom you think could be the best candidates for our direct marketing campaign, and compose personalized messages and send them all, specifically referencing their own features and their own profiles on LinkedIn. Absolutely. Which is right now for humans is probably a month of work for a team of 10 people.
I think the people actually, what you've explained is probably reasonable, but there are a lot of unreasonable. So I think the expectation today, or if you watch news or YouTube, that you go to Copilot and ask, "Hey, I need another million by the end of the month. Go figure it out." Go create your campaign, do whatever you want. I need just $1 million in my bank account. That's it. So I think the expectation is actually there. So what you explained is more reasonable. What is slightly more funky, like entire department going to be replaced and we'll have just AI delivering that. Yeah, that's slightly more weird. I want to pick up.
I'm afraid if AI figures out how to just make another $1 million by the end of the month, at some point it will decide it doesn't need humans.
Exactly. Yeah. So it's why you keep me busy. I want to do something else. Just cancel. So what I wanted to mention to you, mentioned about Power Platform and Copilot and how Dataverse is actually backbone. It's slightly even more interesting. So fundamentally, if you do vibe code, why you need any low code? Why you need databases? Why you need all this stuff? And data for any AI-based project can be sitting in any data source you have. It can be Azure SQL, it can be Fabric, anything you want. But what the unique angle for Power Platform, which is actually coming to realization, what come to my realization with Power Platform in our internal discussion, when you're doing vibe code, you do a lot of, you think if you're a end user, if you're not a developer, not a technologist, or maybe whatever. So you think about so-called functional requirements. You think about features, buttons, but there is a lot of security concerns, cybersecurity. There is a lot of things you need to address just to make your database reliable, redundancy, etc., etc. So-called non-functional requirements. So the challenge is probably for vibe code, you can build all these non-functional requirements too. Why not? But the end user might not be aware that they need to ask this question. So AI will build you a nice-looking interface which anyone can hack and do whatever they want. Like, do you remember first days of websites? We both living long enough when any website was hacked pretty much next day. Any forum you put on your corporate website was hacked next day. Yeah. So what I'm saying, what Power Platform with Copilot.
Sorry.
Yeah, WordPress. Yeah. So what Copilot will do with Power Platform on the back of it, it will address all your non-functional requirements by the massive power of Microsoft experience. And all you're going to do, you're going to add that functional set. So effectively, vibe coding might still be happening within some framework, within some set of non-functional stuff. So you're not going to build completely from ground up, because I heard some people considering, oh, you know what, we don't need any Microsoft anymore. We're going to vibe code everything. And why I need Copilot if I can go directly to Anthropic or ChatGPT and build apps directly there? Because you need to have some foundations, which is a non-functional requirement set. And then you can bring your buttons, you can bring your nice looking forms. And that's the last mile will be a role for Copilot, and all the machine sitting behind it will be still sitting in something like Power Platform. So I don't think vibe code will completely drop need for any technology. You'll still be building on top of, you'll still be standing on the shoulders of giants, so to say. And that's the game. We're probably running out of time, but I want to give, it's not all hunky-dory. What we need to say about, for example, per app or Power Platform license, it's not just restricted entities. When you're buying a full Dynamics license, you get more storage capacity, because people might not be aware that you have some finite storage capacity. When it was on premise, you can buy another hard disk, another server, and that you're sorted for foreseeable future. Here, if you if you have a lot of attachments, you can easily consume space allocated for your user. So for every single Dynamics license, you get more storage space than for Power Platform, for example. It just literally can be, for example, per app, I've checked, you get like 50 megabytes of Dataverse storage. With Dynamics, I think it's 2 gigs. I could be wrong, but I can check. It's way bigger. So storage is also another parameter you need to consider moving. It's not just workloads, it's not just multiplexing, but also, do you need that much storage, or do you want to pay for storage separately? And that's another caveat you have with per app license. But at the end of the day, I think it's a fair story to say, again, giving an example of vendors who build on top of Power Platform. They build a competitive product to Dynamics. They're successful, they're selling, and their cost obviously way lower than the full-blown Dynamics. Maybe different set of functionality, different use case, but it's definitely possible.
Yeah, you mentioned Rapid Start. Yeah. I remember.
Yeah. So there are a couple of others. It's not coming to me. You can Google Power Platform Marketing. There is a company from France. They're quite successful, and they did just that. And there are a couple of other big, kind of comparably big brands who just built completely on Power Platform.
I think the beauty of that is because it's all in the same Dataverse. You can use different tools to access and manipulate the data. I mean, obviously there are restrictions, and there's a big chat with with Wilson in the comments.
Using Power
anyway,
Apps.
Sorry. So we have different tools to operate with the same data, which I think is good. It's good. Yeah, it's not free. It's not cheap. Sometimes it's cheaper, sometimes it's more expensive. But from the point of view of the end user, it's good to have that alternative. And it's good to finally learn that there is a way to...
Yeah, I think we've lost... Sasha might be coming back.
I know, it does it for me, to me sometimes. I have no idea.
That's life. That's the beauty of life, quirks of life.
Yeah, somebody joked in my previous life, Alexander's license for the microphone expired in real time. I love that. I really love that. Yeah. And it's good that we now learned from you that we can use cheaper licenses for potentially doing the same task we would be doing with more expensive licenses. I would put it this way, and there's always a room for improvement. Thanks everybody who's been with us today, and everybody who's going to watch this recorded, because recording stays on LinkedIn and on YouTube, on our channel SAMexpert TV, and you're welcome to come and watch other videos and other live events dedicated to Microsoft. We'll probably be expanding the range of guests as well, and inviting new people in the future. Please stay with us. And I really hope you learned something today. And if you need to find Vlad, Google him, search him on LinkedIn. It's not difficult to find. Yeah. But if you run into a problem and you can't find him, drop me a message and I will connect you. Yeah. Thanks, Vlad. Thank you very much for being with me today.
Thank you for having me. And looking forward to more questions if you have.
Amazing. Okay. And on this note,